Alright, so bolt here 14 mil, bolt over here 14 mil, and then same thing on the back. Except I'm going to move the seat all the way forward and take off those two plastic covers to get to the bolts. So to remove that back piece of plastic, there's a clip, and you can see it, it's gold right there. So I'm going to have my dad squeeze the clip with some channel locks, and I'll be pulling on this side to release it. Alright. There we go. So that hole is where the clip goes into. That's the clip. So we're squeezing that on both sides with a pair of channel locks and pulling, and it came out. So again, that's the hole, channel locks, squeezing that brass clip. So now that those plastic covers are off, this is just a 14mm bolt also. And then once those come off, I'm going to lower this, or pull the seat all the way back, and then just lean it this way to get to the amp. Okay, now we got the seat where we want it. All four bolts have been removed. Since we had power seats, we left the battery hooked up. But now that we're in our final position, we're going to disconnect the negative and then flip this up and start unplugging things underneath it. Negative's been removed. We're going to flip this seat up. And now we got to start disconnecting all this to get more room. I'm going to start disconnecting these harnesses. That was just a little pull tab right there. This one, same thing. Ooh, I guess I squeezed it a little bit too hard. And then the last one right here, I don't know. Oh. Okay, so this one, don't push on the clip. You gotta get a little screwdriver in there and lift this tab up, and then it'll come off. I'm going to put that back where it was. And then last thing is to disconnect this clip in here. There we go. So I was just working my fingers on both sides of that tab, and then it popped out of there. Okay, so now we can get the seat out of the way and get more room to work in here.
I can give you more?
Yeah. That should be fine. Next we're going to move all this trim. This just pops off. That piece is done. And then this, there's that little clip holding it. And you just untwist it. It pops off. You can see it's no longer there. And then this just pops out the same way. So this just pops off. So those are just little clips. Hold it into here. And then we need to remove these two 10mm bolts and this 10mm bolt. So now I'm going to take off this bracket, T15, 2 bolts, and this bracket, T15, also 2 bolts. So we need to move this bracket to this side of the amp and this bracket also to the other side of the amp, basically flipping it 180 degrees. So the instructions say only one of the holes will line up, which is fine. So even though the instructions said to just line it up and screw it in like that, I decided to shave the little dimples using a grinder. And now it sits pretty flush. So this is the board and the amp that came with the kit. I'm going to mount this right here using the 3/4 inch pan head screws that they sent. And we want our plugs to be facing the same direction, so that's why my inputs are right here. So just finished attaching the OEM amplifier to the board that was sent using the 3/4 inch screws. Nothing's connected yet. This is still all disconnected. I'm now going to scratch the paint, sand it down a little bit to show bare metal, to have a good ground point here, and this is what will be my ground wire will go where it will connect to the new amp, and then I'm going to run the power wire through the firewall and towards the battery. So here's just a normal wire hanger. And this is what we're going to use to poke through the firewall. So now I'm going to run this from the inside of the truck out through the firewall bottom grommet nipple. Okay, so you can see that's where the wires come through the firewall, and if we pull this flap down, you can see the hole. I'll zoom into it, but you can see that hole. That's the bottom nipple. The one on top would be too hard to get to because you got to get around the main wire harness. So I ran the wire hanger through that tiny little hole, and now I'm going to push as somebody on the other side pulls. Give it some. Okay. Yeah, keep going. So now I'm going to tie the big gauge wire on the other side and then pull it back through that same hole. So here's the wire that was pulled through the firewall grommet. Now we're going to tape these together. This may seem like an extra step, but getting this thick wire gauge through the firewall is kind of a pain in the ass. So to me, this was the easiest option. The instructions say you can use WD-40 as a lubricant to pass it through the firewall. I've just used Dawn dish soap for a while now, and it works, so I'll just keep using it. So, see, now it's attached. Actually, you don't want it to be like that because then it's going to get caught on the grommet. So we're going to build up like a little cone. And that'll help it go through that grommet easier. So now, I'm going to get some Dawn dish soap. Get a little bit on your hands and make that thing slippery. Alright, you got that? So now I'm gonna pull this wire back this way. And this is just some crap wire, so I don't really care if it gets damaged. He's making sure it's lined up on the other side. Yeah, so see, now we're through. And we just need enough to get to where the new amp's gonna go. So yeah, that looks good enough right there. These little guys you push on this corner and lift up. At least I thought you did. Well, yeah, so you push on that and lift up. I'm just gonna tuck this in there. Close it back. Same thing with this guy. Or it might be easier, instead of messing with all that, to just feed it through. Okay, I'm gonna run it under the carpet. And voila. So these were the OEM bolts that held the OEM amp in place. I need to sand this spot to use it as a ground. This is the connector that came with the ground wire. This hole was too small for me to fit the OEM bolt through. I probably could have drilled it out, but I just cut it off and put one of the other connectors that came with the kit. Yeah, so don't do what I did and over torque that. I broke it off. So second try before we got to start getting the extractor out. Okay. So power wire comes out of the firewall through the windshield wiper hose grommet. We took off this cover for the windshield wipers. It's just held in with clips. There's one on each side right here, and then it just has a bunch of clips lining this bottom tray all the way across. So the power wire just runs in that tray all the way across, comes down under this plastic trim, and then to the battery. So we have the power wire coming through the firewall, all along the OEM harness, under the carpet, and it pops up where the other signal wires come into the OEM amp. There's the ground with the paint sanded to make good contact. Be careful with those bolts, they're really weak, and I sheared off the first one over there and redid it over here. Now I'm gonna start hooking up the amplifier, all the cables, and this, you have to unscrew to take it off, but you can just press it back on when you're putting it back. So that's all secure. And then gonna put this down. This you just lay it over. That's it. Okay. So OEM harness out of the way. Here's the radio signals. Here's the new amplifier. So this is gonna sit something like this here. Okay, so now these two plug into the OEM JBL amplifier, and then these two, so it plugs into there. This one plugs into there. Okay. And then this harness plugs back into its OEM spot. That's pretty much it. Now we just got to hook up our power and ground right here, and we're gonna be rocking and rolling. Oh, that would have made it so much easier. Disconnect this wire so you're not trying to work so hard in an enclosed space. So, finished crimping these two guys. The gauge of this connector wasn't big enough for these, so I had to trim some of the copper out of the conductor to get it to fit in here. I know that's not ideal, but I mean, I don't know what else to do if it doesn't fit in here. So now everything's connected. I'm gonna plug this back in real quick. Okay, I'm gonna start plugging the seat connectors back in. Instructions also talk about running this bass knob up to the driver so you can adjust your bass on your subwoofer. Since we're just going to set how much bass we want one time and be done with it, I'm just going to wrap it up and leave it down here. But there's a plug in the new amplifier for this telephone style wire. Yeah. So that's plugged in. Try to set this where it's out of the way.
People put like Velcro.
27 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to hook up the positive for the amplifier. Just took off that screw. I'm going to place this down. There we go. Now, something that Toyotas do is anytime you disconnect the battery and you start your truck for the first time, it's going to die within the first few seconds of you starting it. It's nothing to be alarmed, that's pretty normal. And the second time you fire it up, it should stay on. There we go. So completely done under here. So it should die when I first start it. Alright, normal.